At the start of the movie Project Helmary, we see a spaceship called Helmary. Suddenly, 2 years later, a man named Grace wakes up inside it. He had been in a coma for a long time. The ship's AI, Mary, starts talking to him, but Grace is super confused about how he ended up there. Then he steps out and checks the ship, where he sees some people like him. That's when he realizes his companions died during the journey. After that, Grace begins exploring the whole ship. Because of the coma, his memory gets pretty weak. He realizes that they're really far from Earth on the spaceship. Then he goes to the control room and tells Mary that they should head back to Earth. But Mary says the mission has to be completed first, and only then will they return. So Grace checks and finds out they left Earth 2 years ago. Slowly, Grace starts remembering his old life. He recalls that he was a teacher and used to teach kids. He explained science, especially molecular biology, in a simple way. Then one day, the girl asks him, "Is it true that the sun, like the star, is going to die?" Grace then explains that the sun's rays reach all the planets, but a strange wave was detected from Venus, called petrol lines. Through these petrol lines, a microorganism from Venus is reaching the sun. Because of this organism, the sun's heat is slowly decreasing. This is affecting all the planets. According to scientists, in about 30 years, the temperature on Earth will drop a lot and a new ice age might come which will affect a lot of people. People can die. Hearing this, the kids get scared, but Grace explains there's no need to be afraid because the best scientists in the world are working on the problem and will do everything they can to save the Earth. After class, Grace often got lost in his own world. That's when a top scientist named Eve would come to see him. Eve knew everything about Grace. He had even written a paper on a theory that life could exist on any planet without water, but people had made fun of him for it. He was kicked out of the scientist group because of that. Since then, he's been working as a teacher. Now Eve gives Grace a chance and says he can prove his theory through a big experiment. Then Grace goes with him to the lab, where Eve hands him a sample. He takes the sample to examine it. Grace studies it and says it looks like some kind of living organism, but to be sure he'll need to run more tests. Then Grace runs different tests on the sample, like checking how it reacts to light. Slowly he realizes that he's a strange elemental organism that might be alien because he doesn't seem like he's from Earth. And now, Eve is pretty happy hearing this. Later on, Grace figures out that this is the same organism that's cooling the sun and that it's connected to the petrol line. That's when she confirms that Grace's theory was right. They found a waterless life form on Venus that's reducing the sun's heat. They named this organism Astrophage. A team of 130 scientists was working on it, but the real discovery was made by Grace. No, he didn't. Then Eve asks Grace if he'll keep helping. Grace says yes. Then Eve takes Grace to a big base. There, she explains that they need to produce a huge amount of astrophage. Grace asks why, and the scientist explains that astrophage will be used like fuel for the spaceship because it makes the ship travel really fast. Their plan is to go on a mission to save Earth. The mission is called Project Helmary, and Grace will be working with other scientists on it too. Grace is. They get ready for the mission. Then Eve explains the whole plan to everyone. Because of the Astrophages, a lot of planets in the universe are in danger. But a distant star system, Tau City, is still safe. So, they need to go there and figure out what's different about it. Grace thinks the plan is pretty impressive, but Eve is worried that with the amount of Astrophages they can make in 2 years, they'll only be able to reach Tau City. They won't have enough fuel to come back. So basically, this mission is a one-way trip, and the people who go might never return. Their plan. The plan was that any important element found there would be sent back to Earth through a small, fast spaceship. That way, even by sacrificing themselves, those people could save Earth. Because it takes about 3 years to reach Tau City, and by the time a message or anything reaches Earth, 26 years would have already passed. These 3 scientists were being selected for this mission. Now, in the present time, Grace slowly starts remembering all this. Then he begins using all the equipment in the spaceship. He respectfully places the bodies of his two dead companions into bags. He knew a guy named Mr. Liu. Grace respects him and says his final goodbye on the spaceship. After that, Grace learns to live on the spaceship and even starts to enjoy it a bit. This journey goes on for several months, but his memory still hasn't fully come back. Then one day Mary says another spaceship has arrived. Grace goes outside to check and sees that this spaceship looks totally different. It's made of something like crystal. Then from that spaceship, something like a bomb is thrown toward Mary. Grace gets scared but doesn't explore further. It happens. Then he thinks maybe it's some kind of message. Grace puts on his spacesuit and goes outside to grab that object. When he opens it, he finds something strange inside. After testing it, they realize it's like a map or a design where the alien has marked their location. He's from a planet called Erin. Then Grace puts Earth's location into the device and sends it back to the alien spaceship. The next day, some wires come out from the alien spaceship that Grace's. They catch the spaceship. The stars form a tunnel-like path that looks like a crystal cave. Grace gets scared at first, but then gathers courage, puts on a spacesuit, and moves forward into the cave. Further in, he sees an alien. Both of them are shocked to see each other. The alien looks like a stone and is about the size of a dog. Grace finds the alien really interesting. The alien makes different sounds to communicate. To respond, Grace jokingly starts dancing, and the alien copies him. Then Grace and Mary team up to build a device. They build something that can understand the alien's language. Once the system is ready, they can finally talk to each other. Grace names the alien Rocky because he looks like a rock. Then, out in space, they start talking about their loneliness. Slowly, they also share their missions. Turns out both have the same mission, to save their respective planets from the Astrophage. Rocky then says there were 23 others like him on his spaceship, but they all died. Grace shares that there were 3 people on his ship, and now he's the only one left alive. Even so, he wants to complete the mission. This makes them good friends because they share the same goal. Grace creates a special voice device for Rocky that can translate his language and speak it. They try out different voice tests, but in the end, they pick a simple male voice. Now they decide to team up and finish their mission together. The scene shifts to the base, where Eve introduces Grace to all the scientists who are preparing for the mission and working on building the Astrophage. Yeah, it's the scientists who actually go on the mission. Grace teaches them how to use the spaceship and how to bring elements from other planets. He also warns them that Astrophage is really dangerous. If it comes into contact with any metal, it can destroy things. Then Grace meets Mr. Liu, who praises him. Grace asks, "If you know there's a chance of dying on the mission, why are you still going?" Liu replies, "If giving my life can save Earth, then that's a small price to pay." Now, in the present, Grace remembers everything and figures out what she needs to do. Just then, Rocky comes into Grace's ship. To avoid oxygen, Rocky covers his crystal around himself because oxygen is harmful to him. Looking at the ship, Rocky jokingly says that Grace keeps it really messy. Hearing this, Grace starts cleaning up. At the same time, she keeps recording everything about Rocky so she can understand him better. Gradually, Grace gets used to he's eating his food. Then Rocky shows his own way of eating. He takes food into his mouth from below. Seeing this, Grace feels a bit queasy. Rocky then, the projection of places, shows how their friendship gets stronger. Rocky says he has a wife on his planet, and they've been together for 183 years, but even that feels too short to him. Then Rocky asks Grace about his girlfriend. Grace says he had a girlfriend too, but he was always busy with work. So she left him and went off with some guy named Mark. Hearing this, Rocky says he doesn't like Mark, and that makes Grace a little happy. Now, after 11 days, both head to Tau City. They arrive there with the main mission to check if the element in the petrol lines is like Astrophage or not. Then, they take both spaceships to collect samples from there. Grace tests the sample and compares it with Astrophage. The test reveals that the element also contains life. It's a kind of bacteria that can fight Astrophage. This gives them A huge hope because maybe this is how they can save the sun. But the problem is they need a large quantity of that element. The fuel for the spaceship near the planet in Tau City is running low, so both of them start getting ready to go there. Then Grace says that his spaceship is low on Astrophage fuel, so he won't be able to make it back to Earth and will die, out in space. But he plans to send the element to Earth on a small ship so Earth can be saved. Hearing this, Rocky gets upset because he didn't know about it. He says, "I won't let you die." Grace replies that meeting Rocky means a lot to him, and he's happy that before dying he got to have a friend. He also says that he'll save both their homes. Then Rocky says his spaceship has a lot of astrophage, which he'll give to Grace. That way Grace can get back home. Yeah, it'll take Rocky an extra 6 years to get home, but he can't let his friend die. Hearing this, Grace gets a bit emotional because he had given up hope, and then he hugs Rocky. Then it shows a flashback where Grace and Eve had their spaceship ready, and in just a few days, the scientists. The team is about to go on a mission when suddenly there's a big explosion in the lab. Everyone gets scared and starts checking the situation. Meanwhile, Grace and Rocky are heading towards the planet Tau City. The environment there is really dangerous. Because of the strong gravity, the spaceship starts getting damaged. Still, Grace bravely goes outside and begins collecting elements from the area in a box. He has to stay out there for a long time to make sure the box fills up properly. During this part, Grace gets hurt while working outside and falls down. Rocky gets scared, but Grace gathers courage, stands up, and grabs the box. Strong gravity is pulling them down. Still, Grace manages to get back to the spaceship with the box. Then they quickly try to take off, but because they speed up, one of their engines catches fire. The situation gets out of control, and there's an explosion. Grace gets injured and passes out, losing control of the spaceship. Rocky sees all this but can't jump in to help right away. Then he takes a risk and uses his crystal. He breaks out of the box. First, he turns on the spaceship's autopilot, then picks up Grace and puts her into the hibernation chamber so AI Mary can treat her. Next, they show a pass for the Hail Mary mission that's set to launch in just 2 days, but the main scientist team is dead. Everyone's stressed, wondering who's going to go now. Then all eyes turn to Grace because she's smart and knows everything about the mission. But Grace refuses, saying he's not an astronaut. Eve insists that he's the best fit for the mission. Still, Grace isn't ready. He was there, but no one was listening to him. In the present, Grace wakes up. Mary tells him that the spaceship is now under control. Then Grace notices some soil-like stuff falling from Rocky's body. He goes closer and sees Rocky lying inside a box, and his color has changed. That's when Grace realizes Rocky is dead and that he gave his life to save Grace. Seeing this, Grace feels really sad. Then Grace tests the elements he brought. When he tests them with the astrophage, he finds out. So, it seems like this element destroys the astrophage and grows itself. Grace realizes that this is why Tau City's star is safe. He names this new element Predator because it wipes out the astrophage. Then Grace talks to Rocky's body and says that now he'll save both their planets. He prepares a bunch of samples to save both Earth and Rocky's planet. Now there's just one problem. He doesn't know how to get to Rocky's planet, Arid. But he decides that Rocky's. He'll go into the spaceship and find the solution. One day, feeling down, Grace ends up sleeping right next to Rocky. Suddenly, Rocky comes back to life and shows up beside him. Grace is super happy to see him and hugs him tight. This scene is really emotional. Then Grace tells Rocky about the Predator. Hearing this, Rocky gets excited too because now they have a solution. They both celebrate since their mission is about to be complete. A few days later, they reach Rocky's spaceship. Rocky shows Grace his ships. He takes him inside. Grace is amazed because the entire spaceship is made of crystal. Seeing this, he's really impressed. Then he's shown a pass. Grace is with Eve, and he refuses to go on the space mission. He says to send someone else. Eve explains that he is Earth's last hope, otherwise Earth and all his students will be wiped out. But Grace still refuses. Then Eve gets firm and says it's an order. Grace tries to run away, but the guards catch him. They force him. Hey, Mary gets sent on a mission and is knocked out, put into a coma. That's why she can't remember anything. Later. Now, in the present, Grace and Rocky are about to part ways. They both get emotional because maybe they won't see each other again. They say goodbye, calling each other brother, then board their own ships and head to their respective planets. Now, 11 months later, Grace is traveling back to Earth. Suddenly, an alarm goes off on his spaceship. When he checks, he finds out there's a sample of a predator from Astrophage. They're coming into contact and destroying it. That's why it's important to keep the two separate, but Grace accidentally kept them close together. Then Grace safely packs all the predator samples and records all their information on video so people on Earth can understand. After that, Grace thinks maybe Rocky's ship could have the same problem, but if he goes to save Rocky, he won't be able to get back to Earth himself. It's a huge decision for him. In the end, Grace decides that he'll sacrifice himself, the predators. He puts the samples into small ships and sends them toward Earth, then changes the direction of his own spaceship and heads toward Rocky's planet, Arette. A few days later, Grace spots Rocky's spaceship. Grace gets out of her spaceship, goes into Rocky's ship cave, that is, the tunnel, and calls for him. Rocky shows up, and the two friends are super happy to see each other again because now they're back together and will spend a long time together. Then, many years later, a scene on Earth is shown. Eve is now quite old, about 27 years later, the sun. Because of the weakening, ice started forming on Earth. But Eve manages to get samples and videos of the predator sent by Grace. From the videos, she also learns about Rocky, and seeing all this, she feels happy. Now, Eve and the other scientists start using the predator to destroy the astrophage, and slowly the work to save Earth begins. Meanwhile, Grace is now living on the arid planet. One day, when he goes outside, Rocky meets him. Rocky has made a special place for Grace there. The place looks just like Earth, so Grace feels comfortable, and Rocky even arranged for a Hail Mary spaceship to be ready in case Grace ever wants to come back to Earth. Grace says he'll think about it. Then the two friends happily spend time together, and in the end, Grace becomes a teacher there.